Welcome to the free webinar series, Take the Chance to Change Your Work. My name is Eva, I'm a psychologist and coach at CNU's Multilingual Therapy Institute, and I invite you to join this free online program that is designed to help you navigate the transitions you might need right now to make your work more meaningful. So welcome everybody again to a new episode in our webinar series, the last one today after 4 beautiful weeks of sharing strategies, practical tips to navigate this complicated decision-making process and overall project of making changes to your work. So today we're going to talk probably about the most difficult aspect of this, which is when is it time to take a leap? As usual, we're going to use the chat during the whole class, and during Q&A you'll have a chance to unmute yourself and talk to me directly. I really recommend that you take some notes. I will again share some steps with you. We'll share some questions that we want to evaluate. So I know there's a lot of information in this upcoming hour, and I want you to be able to take notes. We're also going to record the session because, as usual, you know, some people, they are not available yet. So without further ado, let's jump into this. And I wanted to start again with this picture that we've been looking at, you know, this shift from a chance to make a change. And that's really what it is about. You know, we've all been disrupted, and I really allow myself to say we've all been disrupted, because I think nobody in no industry, whether you are in the health sector or the financial sector or the producing sector or tourism, everybody's been affected by COVID-19 and all the changes we needed to go through. So this really is a chance, because when things get disrupted, we have a chance to rebuild them and reconfigure them in slightly different, you know, shapes and forms. And maybe you say, well, in my case, it has nothing to do with COVID-19. All the better, but you might feel a little bit more frightened right now because it seems like everything is moving. So I wanted to go very directly to this one aspect of making changes at work. When the last sessions we talked about personal levels or organizational levels or this community level, but today again it's a very personal thing. And the main question is, should I stay or should I go? Is it time to say goodbye? You know, there's a lot of songs about that topic. So today we're going to move out of the arts and move into reality. So here we're talking about a personal inkling that I might need to make a bigger change. So what are the typical thoughts that my clients tell me about when they are anticipating that probably they will have to make a bigger change in the future? It's time to say goodbye. In what sense? It's just time. I've been here for long enough. I feel that I'm either hitting the glass ceiling or learned everything that I could have learned in this job. Also very typical sentence to be said by someone who is really into new things, into making that initial contribution to a project, building things, building companies from scratch, bringing projects into existence. That is a very specific profile of person. And if you consider yourself to be one of these people who love to start things up, then there will be a moment in, you know, your contribution or in your, and say the time you belong to a certain project or to belong to a certain company, where it's time to move on. So this is a very natural state, and normally it's those, you know, people, they are very open to change because it feels like, well, I need this, and I know that change will bring about positive emotions. It will bring the sense that I'm growing and that I want to move forward. So lucky you if you belong to that category of people, because it's not the biggest category. The second thought that I hear a lot, and we come back to the time to say goodbye one later on to see what we do with it. So second category is about, oh, I think I need to start from zero. So starting from zero is someone like what I did. You are in marketing, you're in business, and then you figure out, okay, I don't think that's my field. I need to go into psychology. And then you have to study a whole career, and then you have to do masters and got some trainings, which takes many years. And if you're lucky enough, you have the circumstances where you can actually make that investment. But what I would want to add today and question today is, even if that's a thought that pops up in very many people, I would question if it's really the right strategy for most people. And as you can tell from how I'm saying this, the response to this will probably be no. So let's go for 3 and 4. I'm so sick of this, right? It's like, I can't bear it any longer. It's too much. I'm burned out. I can't take it any longer. I just need to leave. And that is kind of 2 different types of thoughts. I'm so sick of it that we have more the attention of what's really wrong about our work, what's not working on a daily basis. And 4, I don't know where I put this, but I think I was thinking more about this bigger context where you really feel I need to leave. It's not my thing. I just need to go because I'm never going to fit in here. You know, it's not going to bring out the best in me. So we're going to look at what we're going to do with these thoughts and how we're going to move from anticipating thinking to really doing things about that. And most importantly, making big choices about, is it worth it? Because I would be lying to you if I said, oh, you just go for your career change, just change your job. It's easy, it's fun. It's like, no, it's not always fun. It involves some risks, and you want to be sure that you're moving in the right direction. And when I say you need to be sure that you're moving in the right direction, I'm not implying that you need to know what is the thing that I'm going to do with my life. That's normally too big. But we need to know, like, from where I am right now, what's the right direction and what's the next steps that I'm going to take. So let's look at this question, right? This question, if it is time to take the leap now. And often when clients come in and at that point, what we do right away is we're going to look at risk versus opportunity. Because why? Risk is what we're willing to take in order to go for an opportunity. And that's where courage, that's the birthplace of courage. When you know there is a risk, but you're willing to take it because it's worth it. That really is the definition of courage by Robert Biswas-Diener, who wrote the wonderful book, The Courage Quotient. And he said, well, that's it, you know, courage equals willingness to act over the amount of fear that I feel. So I have translated that into, are you willing to take the risk to go for the opportunity you want? And when you go, yes, then that's courage. So we want to know that whatever we do, whatever change we introduce to our work, it is a courageous act because there is risk involved. People might not like it. You might not like it as much as you thought you would. Or the third risk, and that's the one that's most overlooked by my client, there is a risk to staying where you are. There's a risk of staying put. So that's also something that I want to bring into the picture. And what do we do about it? So before that, I have a quote for you. And I love this, Martin Luther King. The time is always right to do what's right. Isn't that inspiring? Right? The time is always right to do what's right. Which most of my clients would answer, yes, but I don't know what's right for me. So if that's your case too, it's completely natural. So I've been there myself, like, but what is the right thing? Should I still for a little longer? Have I tried hard enough? Isn't there anything else I can do in my current situation? Or you are just saying, like, you know, whatever, I'm not thinking about what's right. I'm so desperate, I just want to leave, which is also probably not the right balance. So what we want to do is I want to take a step back and evaluate what's right for me and when is the right time for me to leave. So we're taking this inspiring quote and we turn it into something personal. So my rule of thumb, you know, often people, they ask me, okay, Eva, so but when's the right time to leave? And I do have a rule of thumb, which it took a couple of years to come up with it and to have the confidence to say, yes, I think that's it, because obviously there was no manual that I could read, but just working with my clients and helping them and sometimes, you know, risking too much or not risking enough, that's my rule of thumb. So it starts off with, if you know that you want to leave and you know that already, you know it's time for you to go, then make it a good ending and make it a smooth transition. Why am I saying this? Because this impulse, I want to go. I had enough. It might lead to some reckless behavior, you know, and then what's the problem? I'm fine with reckless behavior unless it doesn't harm you, it doesn't harm anybody else. You know, just doing crazy things, sometimes it's exactly what we need. But we don't want to be crazy about certain things. We want to make informed choices. And I think something that is always a good recommendation is make it a good ending. You never know where life's going to take you. And if you leave with your head high, or you leave through the big door, you end on a high note, whatever image you want to note, you want to use here, I've seen that on the level of self-esteem, on the level of feeling at peace with that chapter that you're closing, it really is the best strategy. And what does that mean exactly? It means different things for different people. But if I think back about some clients, for some it meant, I want to recover a sense of dignity after what has happened to me. So it had a lot to do with communicating, saying things that had not been said. It also can mean like you really give your best in the last months that you're there. You already made a decision. Maybe you even have an opportunity on the table, and you give your best because you want to leave and people saying, oh, we're going to miss you, and really mean it, and you know that it's true, and that will give you actually an additional energy to start that new thing that you're going for. And smooth transition means you don't want to run into a situation where suddenly the risk is so tangible that you actually freeze. Right? And on part 1 of our webinar series, we talked about paralysis. So we know we are playing with risk. So risk can trigger fear, and that could make you go into a state of blanking out, which is not what you need when you're in transition. Transition is a creative process. It's a process where we want to have a whole thinking online, connected and usable. So that's just number 1. What happens if you don't want to leave yet? You're like, not sure, maybe, a little bit more risk averse. So then I would say, then give it your best and try to make a change where you are. Make small shifts, and we're going to see how. Make those shifts, because sometimes it is this, I've tried, just knowing that you've really tried to make the best of what you had. And if you realize that it doesn't work, part 3 here, if it doesn't work, then leave anyways. We're going to see why. I think for me, how I normally talk to people, that's a pretty stark statement, because I'm not the one to decide if you should leave your job. I don't know your circumstances, and I'm very respectful of circumstances and on the emotions that get triggered. And I do believe that we need to find the right balance. And nevertheless, there are situations where really the recommendation is you need to leave. It's not good for you anymore. It is burning you out. It's doing something to you. And if you stay longer, you will just take longer to recover from what you're living through right now. So the whole process of transitioning will be longer just because of the state that you're in. When you stay too long in a situation, that's not good for you. So that's my rule of thumb, and I'm going to break that down for you so that you have kind of your, okay, where am I right now? What's the best next thing that I can do? So step number 1, which is something we do in coaching pretty often, is be as specific as you can. What's the real problem? So remember those thoughts, those statements. We're going to go through each of them, and I'm going to give you a little insight into what I would respond as a coach in that situation. So imagine you're in that arena. I think it's time to say goodbye. I am so sick of this, right? It's too much. So we're assuming something bad is going on, or you're just not making a contribution, you're bored, you're overly stressed, whatever that is. So you come to me and you say that. What would I respond? What's the question I would make? What exactly? What you might say, what's that type of question? What am I referring to? What exactly are you sick of? What is exactly the thing that you need to say goodbye to? Because it's not the same if you're saying, I'm sick of this environment, or I'm sick of the tasks that I have, or I'm sick of the lack of growth opportunities that I have at this place. Or even if you're not employed, because I'm talking all the time as if I was only talking to people who are employed by now. No, I'm also talking to entrepreneurs who might be saying like, I'm sick of not having stability. I'm sick of having to fight every day to keep this going. So maybe you're sick of the fact that you haven't delegated enough, that you haven't made a good business plan where you can also start to contribute less, as a founder, as an owner, and have other people take over. So it's really important to not go directly to, oh, you're sick of the job, let's go change. No, we need to identify what is the real problem. So let's see the next one. I need to start from zero. I had a it was an amazing incident, and it was just right when I was starting to take my first steps into the world of coaching. And I went to an event, and I don't even remember what the event was about. And there was this lady who was an expert in outplacement. So constantly being brought into companies where they were doing EDEs or where they were doing layoffs, and helping those people who were being let go to find a good reinsertion into the workplace, into other companies. And I told her, and I think I was maybe talking about me, I don't know how it came across, and she said, like, always everybody being obsessed about starting from zero. That's such a BS. She was really angry. That's such BS. Why everybody wants to start from zero? That's not necessary. You have so much that you have. Why would you throw that all away? And that stuck with me. And I really, over time, I saw even though she got it across in a very kind of intimidating way, it's so wise. Because the fact is, you have a lot of experiences, you have strength, you have so much to add. So even if you want to give a completely different direction to your development, everything that you have, it's of value for that new path. So if you look at my example, I'm saying that I'm talking about it myself here so much, but I really want you to see that I've been there, you know, I know what it implies. So I started off as a psychologist and then started to learn coaching, and I had an experience in international marketing, international business development, in a software environment, in fast-moving consumer goods. That's what I had done. And I knew languages, and I happened to be a German-speaking person in Spain. I never would have thought that my first job as a psychologist would come from exactly those qualities that made me stand out in comparison to other psychologists. The fact that I had an international background, the fact that I spoke different languages, that were the things that allowed me to get my foot in the door. And I was competing against people who had experience in psychology. I didn't. You know, there is a time when it's your first session with a client. And back then we were not lucky to have masters where they actually did that with you, you know, where you had client sessions. We didn't. It was just like, you go start, let's go see a client. So it was the valuing what I had that really, really made that step, that made that change happen for me. And since then, you know, clients who come from, for example, literature background, literature and languages background, who move into business, who also put the foot in the door because they bring in their specialty. And we talk a lot about transferable skills, also transferable experience or special experiences. They make you stand out. So let's look at this. You know, I need to start from scratch. Maybe not. So here are my questions. Do you want to? Do you want to start from zero and learn something completely new? Because if that's the case, then by all means go, make it happen. And then the second would be, if the person goes, not so sure, then I would ask, do you really need to? Do you really need to start from zero? I personally think we can't start from zero. We're not a blank slate. We have a lot of previous stuff that has happened to us. So nevertheless, if you want to do something different, so I'm just thinking of a client who did leave her marketing career and went back to uni and started studying something completely different, and she's happy as can be, you know. And there's other people who thought they would need to shift completely, and then what they do is they just add something on. They add something on, and then the final product that they put back out in the job market is, this is my 15 years of experience, plus now I have this specialization, which opens up a completely different pathway. So what else do we have here? I need to leave, but yeah, exactly. I need to leave, but you can fill in the blank. But I can't. But I'm too afraid. But it's not. But under the current environment, it's not possible. That might all be true. You know, that it's tough. But here is how I would respond. Is there anything you can do without leaving yet? No, because I'm first of all wanting to respect that fear. I want to respect that sense of, I don't know. I'm just hearing a lot of fear. And I know where there's a lot of fear, we can't really see all the options. So I would say, you know, there is there is some hope, and the hope is called, even if it's not a complete shift, there are things that you can do in your current environment without going down the risk road. How does that look like? For example, think about a client who was on maternity leave and she wasn't happy at all at her job, and then she made the change as she came back. So she was working for a big company and went back and changed the type of role that she was in. And it was a huge transformation. She said afterwards, wow, this was amazing. I wouldn't have thought that I could be so happy at that company. Because what we do normally is we develop this aversion. If we're in a difficult work situation, we develop like a general aversion to that place, to that industry. And sometimes maybe it was just the specific constellations of you in your role in that context. Are there other options where you are? And then the next question would be, what is the smallest yet significant change that you're willing to make? Can you have a conversation with your boss? Can you shift some tasks? Can you spend more time with the people that make you grow and less time with those project people, circumstances that you loathe? It's very often possible, and it gives you some time to recover your energies, and then maybe you will take a leap, but you will take it from a different place, right? Not out of desperation, but out of, I'm ready, which is a very, very different story then. So I'm sorry that this is so full, this should probably be animated. Anyways, step 2 is about evaluating the risk, and let me just do that correctly so that you can follow me, otherwise it's probably going to be a little bit too much. Okay, let me do this again. Here I'm back with my beautiful slide. And here we are, bear with me. Okay, thank you so much. I want you to go one by one. So the big question here is, does it make a difference? Translated into, is it worth the risk? So if we want to look at if it's worth it, we need to know if it works. Does it make a difference in terms of my well-being, in terms of the level of meaningfulness that I experience at work, in terms of stress levels? So let's go through this one by one. One concern could be, well, I will earn more money. It's about the money. I'm not happy with what I'm earning right now, so I will earn more money maybe in that next step. I'll go for that. So what's the response? And this is not my response, this is research-based responses. So in terms of money, we often see that it's like, well, to a certain extent, and then we do have to analyze what's the lifestyle that you want and how much do you need? Why do I ask the question, how much do we need? Because I see that sometimes we get used to this, or more is better. Why? Well, because in the beginning of a career, that is true. No, we don't have any money, then we earn some money. So it's like, oh, wow, cool. So now I can actually live on my own. And then you get some more money in the next raise, and then you can actually have a car. And so with every increase, we have an experience of, it gives me more opportunities to live the life I want to live. But that is only true up to a certain point. So obviously it's different if you're on your own, if you have a family, if you have 1 kid, 0 kids, 10 kids. That determines a lot how much money you need. And the lifestyle you want to live also. So with this one, it's a typical psychologist response. It depends, but research clearly indicates it's just to a certain degree. If you have your basic need covered, if you lead a lifestyle that is comparable, then more money might not necessarily be the answer. Another one that we assume, maybe if I have tasks that use my strength, would that make a difference? And here the response is, yes, it would. It would make a difference. Oh, it's not just like looked at the beginning. But okay, we're in the second one. Yes, it makes a difference. And the important thing is that we see a clear increase in workplace well-being, and we see a clear increase in workplace contribution when someone uses 3 to 4 strengths at work on a consistent basis, daily, weekly, minimum. So the thing is, imagine me, when I was in business, I literally decided to go into business out of curiosity. That was my motivation when I was 18 years old. Probably not the best motivation or not the most complete one. I was curious, what is that about? And that worked, for a couple of years. But when I was, in the thick of things, in, my marketing job in Geneva, and it was so complex and so not aligned with my strength, with my real strength, it wasn't enough. And yes, curiosity and learning was a big thing every day, but I had to activate leadership, not my thing, organization, not my thing, meaning it not only did not use my strengths, I had to use stuff that's not mine. I'm not good at it, or maybe I can be good at it, but it comes with a high cost. So 3 to 4, what would that be right now as a psychologist? I feel I use my curiosity every day. I use creativity quite a lot, in sessions, when I do trainings like this. And I also use a lot of acceptance and, being open-minded with what people tell me, which is something I enjoy very much. It gives me a lot. And these are strengths that are truly mine and that give me a lot of energy. So personal level makes sense. I observed it also with a lot of clients, clients who are fully into creating things, new things. When you put them in an environment where they cannot use that, they will wither away. So the thing about do something you love, so powerful phrase, do something you love. Do we have data for that? Yes, minimum 20% of the time, which is not that much. Also, and this, I'll come to that later on, if you can think about that, I think that new opportunity or that new idea that I have, I would be able to do something I love most of the time. That's a very good indicator because maybe it's not that great as you imagine. We're very bad at anticipating how great something will actually be. But if you can anticipate, I think most of the time I'll be doing something that I love. That's probably a good indication that yes, maybe that would be worth the risk. If it makes you grow in a value direction, it gives you meaning, it helps you make a meaningful contribution, we know that your meaning, your perception of meaning will go up. So very important here to remember, we don't naturally lead lives that are only based on meaning. The latest data points that I saw, just 2% of a huge amount of people in the Netherlands, just 2% said they live a life that's fueled by only meaning. Very little. What does that mean? Normally we have meaning and pleasure. That's the holy grail of flourishing. You have pleasure, you like what you do, so that's related to your strengths, and then you have meaning. Whatever you do, it has a meaningful contribution. So when you have both, that's ideal. So if you need to add some meaning, that's great. But to be honest, if you come from a situation where you're not using your strength at all, and you see one next step that might be adding more strength use, but you're not so sure about the meaning, I'm very pragmatic. Maybe that's a good first step. Maybe that's something you can do for a little while. And will it open up doors that will eventually lead to a meaningful contribution? Yes. Okay, then by all means, that's a great first step. You're better off than before. And you're saying, okay, let me get the pleasure in. Let me do something I like more. And then later on, let me go into the direction that on top of that adds meaning. And if you've been here last time, you might remember meaning is about growth, contribution, helping others, growing on a daily basis. We can actually do that wherever we want. Maybe the cause of what we're doing is not there, but the process might be created by you in whatever environment you are. Well, whatever, in an environment where it's possible to do that. Right? If you are sitting alone at home and you have nothing to contribute to and you're just, not connected at all, and that's your job, maybe it's more limited, but okay. Let's move on. It will eliminate my stress. You might imagine that when I put eliminate, it's like, no, there's always going to be some stress. Yes, whatever we do, there will be some stress. Remember that research, people who have meaning and pleasure, they are flourishing at work, they're growing, they're in upward spirals of well-being and feeling better and growing and just being a really positive place to be in. So you might think that these people experience less negative affect than the others. Truth is, no, they don't. They have exactly the same levels of negative affect. So the big question here is, don't attempt to eliminate your stress. It will just be different. There will be stress, but maybe it's a different type of stress. And maybe also it's different quantity of stress, right? If you're coming from investment banking, if you're coming from consulting, you're used to very high levels of stress. It's pretty likely that if you shift to a different sector, there might be less, but also different. So the question is, which type of stress do you want? Which type of stress are you willing to put up with to go for that opportunity that you seek? Because that is really the question for you to ponder. So 2 questions here for you to ponder, some statements based on research. That's how we evaluate risk and benefit. But let's dive a little bit deeper into this. Let's look at how to manage the risk. Once I've identified what I've tried to do here, and I'm not 100% happy with it because it's not perfect, this graph, but it helps me make the point. So I thought, okay, let's look at the level of change. Do I have a very high level of change or do I have a low level of change? And put that together with the personal investment, which could also be called the perceived risk. Is that very high? Is that very low? So in this quadrant, we can find different options. So different options have different risks to them. So let's start with the one that I said before is always overlooked. I just keep on doing what I'm doing. I stay where I am. You might say that's not on the graph. It is. Because even though it has a low level of change, it actually has a high personal investment. Why? Because you're not feeling well. You're not at your best. You are struggling. You're already thinking, I should leave, but you're not leaving. The only way of dealing with this would be to find a huge meaning in what you're doing. But again, on a practical level, I think that can only be feasible for a couple of years. We can't stay there forever. We will probably end up in burnout. So there is a high risk. We think if I stay put, there's no risk. It's not true. There is an emotional risk. There's the risk of ending your career and saying, I wish I would have, regrets. And that is a risk. It's a health risk. So let's move on to the next one. Next one is here in the middle. And so I would call that do the same thing in a different setting. Like, for example, I maintain the same job, I do it for a different company. I maintain the same contribution, but I translate it into a different sector. So it's the same thing that I'm doing. I have all the, let's say, experience in it. I have the credentials for it, and I take it to a different setting. That's an intermediate, right? There's not that much change. There is some change, of course. You're changing where you work, how you work. But in terms of risk, it's intermediate. You're not really giving up everything. So next one is the famous start from zero, learn something new. That's very easy to put in our graph. High personal involvement, very high. You need to invest time, energy, and there's risk, right? Because again, you have never done it. You don't know if you actually like it. It will take time, so it might, may even mean that you need to stop working because you're doing completely different studying, whatever that is. Just, it's pretty high up there. So that's the version that most often it turns people off, even though we think that that's the way. No, it's just one option amongst many. What else do we have? And then this is pretty popular. Let me do my current job differently or do something different in the same context. So that's when we start having conversations. Can I do a different project? Can I start having different responsibilities? Especially if we're both in big and small companies, startups are very fluent in that way. So that's a good one. It's quite a bit of change. So if you're longing for change, that's a good one. And the risk is not that high because you don't do anything disruptive. It's not like I'm gone, bye-bye. I'm handing in my resignation. I'm done. I'm not doing that. And the last one, very much overlooked. It seems like does that really do anything? And it does. And it's called start my transition, staying in my old job. In what way? I do my job, I'm looking for work. One option. I do my job, I get trained in different things, right? I do online courses. I start acquiring different skills. I start to volunteer in certain things that I'm interested in on the weekends because I'm building a different repertoire of skills. That is already a transition. Or you start building your network, right? For the next year, you're not going to do anything, but you're already in transition. And that is wonderful for your mental health because it's not like, I've been knowing that I don't like this and I'm not doing anything about it. You're not saying that to yourself anymore. You can very wholeheartedly Give yourself a pat on the back saying, hey, it's great, I'm listening to myself, and I'm starting to act on that longing for change. So if you come in with these types of plans, if this is what you would work on your own with a coach, is basically, if you're stuck in a situation, you can't leave, it's impossible to make a change, you've tried, you need to manage your mental health. That's the first thing. So sometimes someone comes in, it's really in a big state of deterioration, and that's the first thing that we do. So you obviously would do that with a coaching psychologist, not with a coach. Mental health is psychology. So that's sometimes necessary to then move into starting the transition or then making some other changes, just because if you're depressed or anxious all the time, you can't really think straight. If you're in that middle ground, well, you want to start managing your network, you want to start applying, you want to do some personal branding, you want to put some articles out there, use your LinkedIn more consciously, whatever that is, so you just start doing things. If we start from zero, then we need to manage the transition. There need to be management of time, of finances, of energy. Can I stop working and do the MBA? Do I do a part-time MBA if that's what I want to do? All these considerations, but really managing the transition so that you get to the end with some energy left and hopefully lots of joy for the new start. This one, doing my current job differently, is all about job crafting, about communicating a lot with your environment, having conversations, strategic partnerships, whatever that is. Really, really exciting, because we're often surprised in this one when people come and, I don't know if they will be open, but then they realize, wow, I'm valued here, so they want me to be happy at my job, so they're willing to make changes. So that's where I see a lot of positive surprises. And the last one, I'll start my transition and I'm staying in my own job. If we do that, we manage energy, right? Because what we literally have to do is get to the point where my current job is not taking away so much energy so that I have time left to start my transition, whatever that is, building the network, doing a course online, So there needs to be some energy at the end of the day to get that done. Good. So these are kind of how to, can I manage the risk and how do I manage the risk? And then the last step, very straightforward, very coaching-like, you need to have a plan and not just define it, you need to implement it. And here's my 7-step process that I go through with clients, which actually, it looks very long here, but it's a one-time consideration where you really take 2 or 3 hours and you do your master plan. It's a Tempus. Tempus is a German company, so they have created this process. I got trained in that, and it starts with the end goal. What's your end goal? Really, like by the time you retire, by the time you say, okay, worked enough, what do you want to have accomplished? What do you want to be able to look back to? So just as Simon Sinek says, we start with the why, or in my words, with the what for. What is the end goal of this? Next thing, we define some milestones for the next 3 to 5 years. Whatever time frame is more visible for you, could even be 3 to 7 years, whatever feels comfortable. So that kind of, okay, it doesn't have to happen now, it's down the road, it gives me some time to make mistakes, to readjust along the road, but we really are specific about what needs to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. So if you happen to be an expert in a field and you say my end goal is that I want to be recognized as someone who has made a big contribution to that field, maybe in the next 3 to 5 years, I want to publish so many articles, or I want to write a book, or I want to have built my own company, or I want to have spoken at a huge conference that is super relevant in my sector. Okay, these are not goals that you would just tick off in a month. They take a while. You need to get to that point where you actually can do it. 3 to 5 years. If you're in a corporate setting, that can be, I want to be a partner. Oh, okay, 3 to 5 years. Is that possible? Do you need more? What is in 3 to 5 time frame? Once you've done that, you come down to this year. So depending on when you do that, it can even be either be a calendar year or maybe summer to summer. I wouldn't go March from March to March. I would use something that is symbolically useful. So financial years can also be, okay. In the sense that a summer and end of year is always periods where we can slow down a bit, we can reflect. So the idea would be, what needs to happen this year? And then once you've done that, you will break it down into quarterly milestones, down to the monthly milestones, and then very importantly, define and commit to your weekly routines. What's the trap that I see people do? They think if they're not sending out CVs or building their network or whatever they think they need to do now, every day, they're not doing anything. And it's not true, because they will burn out. We can't do these things every day, especially if we're in transition. It takes energy because we're trying to do something complex with many different opportunities ahead, with a lot of uncertainty. So you need to take it slow because it might take some time. So the weekly routines could be, how often a week do I want to do X, which leads to my monthly milestone, which is related to my quarterly milestone, right? So it's connected. It's just a specific representation of those milestones, which I actually can put on an agenda. Put on an agenda, and then I can go week by week, day by day, like, check, I'm on my way, I'm transitioning, I'm doing what I have to do to be on this path, which is, again, it's a reinforcement that we need to know that we're doing it. And we need some positive reinforcement, because it's a long road. So if you don't have positive emotions along the way, you're likely to just drop it, right? Because obviously it's easier to just watch Netflix or just bitch about the current situation and say, nothing I can do about it, which is, depending on how you manage your emotion, that might be a relief to an emotion, but it actually doesn't do anything. So as action requires an investment of energy, so you need energy, so please make sure that you reinforce yourself along the way by sharing it with someone, by celebrating your small wins, etc., etc. And then you want to commit to a quarterly review of the progress. Why quarterly and not weekly? Because it might be frustrating. Because sometimes, and I've seen that often, transitions, they go in a weird way. They don't go linearly. They go like a jump here, suddenly I've accomplished something, suddenly everything seems to stop. And so there's kind of waves. We're just trying to break it down here. This is not a perfect representation of what's going to happen. So the review, if you're more comfortable with doing it every month, that's fine. But I think quarters are good because you can see things happen, but it's not tight. It's not too tight, so that you might get frustrated if nothing really happens. And if it's true that nothing has really happened, then probably there's something that you need to work through. That would be the time to reach out to someone who can help you. Because if you're really determined you want to make this happen and you don't do anything for 3 months, something's going on. Is there a doubt? Is there a process of maybe I don't know, you started doubting yourself, or you suddenly had a different thing going on in a different area of your life that's put this on the back burner. It's really good to establish the quarterly review, and again, put it on your diary, because otherwise you'll forget. You get sucked into the process and you forget about that one. So this is the point where I would really love to hear from you. We're at 6 today. This is beautiful. So let me just make sure that I allow you to. You can activate your own microphone if you want to. So we've seen different questions. We've seen the process of how does a coach work through these big questions. And please, if you have any questions to ask me, then you can use the chat, or you can just unmute your phone and share some considerations. So in order to get that going, I have a little poll here for you, because I'm curious about the emotions that are around when we think about making changes to your work. And hope you can see the poll. I've just launched that. If you activate your, if you look at your screen, you should be seeing a poll. And I have some questions here. When I think about making changes to my work, I mainly feel whatever that is. So let's see. Responses are coming in. How do you feel when you just think about making changes to your work? So this looks good. Okay, I have 3 people. Maybe the other 2 maybe are still there. I see some of you are calling in from a phone. Perfect, we have 4 now. And that's something interesting. So I know the last person, maybe on phone, maybe you can't do it. Let me just finalize that and share the results. And obviously we are not that many, so this is not significant, but you can see this, right? It's so good to see that there is excitement coming up. There is a feeling of hope. And yes, there is a little bit panicky feeling. So I would hope that the fact that I shared with you some strategies, maybe you shifted, maybe if we had this poll in the beginning of the session, it would have been less excited, less hopeful. But really, this is the message. I want you to know that even behind something that is as uncertain and we really don't know what's going to happen, but even under these circumstances, we can lean onto strategies and we can lean on making things not so panic-inducing. Put here, as you can see, I put scared, I put clueless, I put unable, so I put much more negative emotions than the positives I put, but you're going for the positives. So please let me hear from you. Tell me in chat what makes you excited or what makes you hopeful, and if there's any questions that you would like to clarify, because today is the last webinar of the series. So we've got exactly 10 minutes to do so. Anyways, if you're excited, please feel free to still unmute your microphone and tell me your questions. Again, I put up this special offer that we have, which has been prolonged. I don't know for how long we're going to offer it. We're still in lockdown. We're still not fully back to the office. As long as I do online, this is the offer. You have the normal career coaching, transition coaching, which is only €100 for 85. That's our little contribution here. Also trying to get back to where we were in terms of, work and making some changes. So if you feel that, okay, it's clear, I do want to do this, but I'm, not sure yet, then please make sure that you get in touch. This is my email, ekherber@sinews.es, very important, ES, and it would be lovely to hear from you. So I just got a question. Amelia, I also feel a bit tired when I think about changing. What a good emotion. I'm so sorry that I didn't put this up here. It's so right, I like to do it as smoothly as possible, but I want to try and stay as healthy as possible while I stay. Yes. So this is a very important consideration. I do see that being tired, that often shows like you've been struggling for quite a while. So you've been being in a situation where you're doing things in a way that is tiring to you. So what I normally would do, Amelia, in a moment like this, is something that I call stop the drain. So we actually go in and start to identify what is the drain that is happening on a daily basis. Maybe we can identify some tasks that are draining. Maybe we can identify some commitments that are draining. So the first step would be, even if I didn't want to change, even if I just did this because I wanted to feel better and I wanted to feel more energized, let's start to stop the most draining aspects of your work first. Maybe it also is that you are not using your strengths. So you're saying, well, I'm super creative, but I'm never doing anything creative at work. So in that case, you would want to start by adding in something positive that helps your energy balance. So really you're in that category of you need to manage your energy. And this is very, it could be very subtle. And I would recommend, to just start with looking at your energy and say, like, when do I feel extremely tired? When do I feel moderately tired? And when do I actually feel there is a sense of energy coming back? And then try to do a little bit more of what gives you energy, do less of what takes your energy away. And only if you said, okay, if I've given it a try, I've communicated my need for changing, and nothing has happened, and I'm just feeling more tired, then it might be, after a while, a moment to say, I can't do it. And I need to stop. I need to, just pull the stop button, which is, it doesn't happen very often. So maybe in the last year of the processes, maybe that happened in 5% of the cases, where someone really said, and I didn't expect it, but we're in the middle of career coaching, and suddenly the person came back and said, if I did it, I resigned. I turned in I said that I would leave because I couldn't take it anymore, and it was taken away from my essence, and I was being grumpy and I'm not being myself anymore, and I just, even if I try, it's too much. So this is often something that it's good to evaluate that. It's good to evaluate that with also people who know you, who would give you an honest evaluation. Do you think there is some hope that I could turn this around? And yeah, that's basically the read here. Sarah, I'm procrastinating because it feels like there is so much space between where I am and where I want to be. Yeah, so in the sense of, I'm not anticipating that there will be any big changes on a short-term basis, and then we procrastinate. We could also be procrastinating because it's like I don't see the end of this, and that's an interesting one, because maybe it's a good place to start would be breaking it down and really saying, okay, if my end goal is this, and really objectively speaking, I need to pass through different stages to get there, I would write it down. I would make it very visible and to mark yourself where you are. I would also put dates and times on those different stages approximately. We say, well, I think this phase will take half a year, and then maybe the next phase should be 2 years, and then the next phase is probably already pretty close. And it works, so I'm talking about when I did my transition, it was like, so here I am, I'm a marketing executive, I want to be a psychologist. So study your psychologist undergraduate degree, which took back then 5 years. I was working at the same time, so it took 6 years. 6 years, and then you do a master's, which is another year, and then, so it was a long time. But to be honest, even though in the beginning when I was studying psychology, I didn't even think about when I would make the change. It just, in my case, I had to make the change when the circumstances pushed me to make the change. It wasn't a choice, which again, not ideal, and that's why I do these things today. But as long as you know that you're on the track and you're doing something, that's the thing about procrastination. We feel like we're not doing what we should be doing, so it's frustrating at the end. Break it down, put in the dates so that you know whatever stage you're in right now, it's temporary, and you're actually doing the steps that will help you move forward on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, whatever that is. It can't be on daily basis. Sorry that I said this. Monthly basis is good, right? Have your weekly commitment and look at every quarter, you look at what you've accomplished. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much, ladies, for sending in those questions. I'm going to close this session unless there's another question. We're coming close to the hour. I'm going to be in sessions in a moment. Amelie, I think it's a mixture of both, not using my strengths properly and having communicated my need for change, and yet I still feel drained. Okay, yeah, this is, and I don't know your situation, but if you feel, I have been in this company for a long time, I'm a valued part of the team or of the situation. Sometimes when we say like, I need this to change, right? We need to come back and say like with more impetus, like really saying like, this needs to change. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to do. So because people don't get it, say, oh yes, that's nice, but Amelie she's a nice person. We have her back, but they take too long. So give them a chance to really realize how serious this is. And sometimes the other way, and I didn't say that before, there are also ways of reducing the drain in your personal life to a certain extent. And to a certain extent, because at the end we spend a lot of time at work. And if that's just draining, then the rest of the day might not be enough, What are other things are taking maybe a little bit of a reduction in the time that you spend at work? Sometimes that is a good enough transition, where you say, I'm going to reduce, maybe you have kids, maybe you have another condition where you can ask for that, the condition where your company allows you to cut your hours, and you do that as a transition. So thank you very much. Saying goodbye again. It was lovely to share this space with you. You have my contact information. Please stay in touch. This will be uploaded to the YouTube channel, so you can just go back whenever you want. It's on the Sinews YouTube channel under my own one. It's called Impulsos Positivos. You can find it there in Job Transitions playlist. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. That's wonderful. That's been helpful. Really appreciate that. Have a lovely Friday evening and a lovely weekend.